morning, everyone. So in our first reading today, we're going to hear about this guy named Solomon. So if you're not super familiar with him, I'll give you a little bit of background on him. So at this point in the story, Solomon has just become king because his dad, David, has just died. So since he was king before, now it's Solomon's turn to step up and become king himself. So you may actually remember David from some other famous stories in the Bible, especially the story about when David was a little young shepherd boy and went up against this big giant guy named Goliath and ended up beating him with just a rock and a sling. So same guy. And we also know that David's really important because he is an ancestor of Jesus. So therefore, Solomon would also be an ancestor of Jesus. They're all related, so they're all really important. So what else we know about what's going on is that Israel is still a pretty new nation. So David did a lot of work to help bring everyone together, and Solomon feels like he needs to do his part to help keep it going and help make Israel the best it can be. So that brings us to where we are in this story. So what happens is that God appears to Solomon and asks him what Solomon would like from God. So now before we get any further, let's think about what we might ask from God if we were asked the same question. God shows up and says, "Hey, what can I give you?" What do you say? Do you ask for a new puppy? Do you ask for $1 million? Do you ask that you can eat ice cream for every meal and never get in trouble for it? There are lots of things that we can think of that we would want. However, when Solomon is asked this question, he says that he wants wisdom. He wants to be able to understand the difference between good and evil and use all that wisdom to help govern and lead the people of Israel. He doesn't ask for something that would be good for only himself. He asks for something that he thinks can help everyone. And how cool is that? And because of that, God agrees and gives Solomon wisdom. So this story reminds us that we are called to love and help others just like God does and just like Solomon does in this story. When we do things that help our neighbors, God is there with us to help too. So what are some things that we can do that help others and not just ourselves? A big example is our food pantry here at Grace. Our volunteers help find ways to bring food to all sorts of people in the community, and it doesn't help them at all. They just show up, use their time to help get food to others, and that's a great thing they do for people in the Champaign-Urbana area. Or even outside of church, I'm sure most of us are wearing masks to help stop the spread of COVID-19. Now, where you wear a mask, it helps others more than it helps yourself because you're trying to make sure the people around you don't get sick. And so even with those masks, another thing that we're going to be doing soon is that we're going to have a mask drive. We're going to be collecting some masks and we're going to be sending them all over the world to help people who are still fighting COVID-19. So if you're able to help make masks, that's another way you can help people more than just yourself. But sometimes it's hard to know what we can do to help others because not everyone can volunteer at food pantry or not everyone can donate to organizations that help support good causes, or even with the masks, not everyone can sew well enough to make masks to donate. So sometimes it just feels like we can do more, that we're not doing enough. Because there are some of us who know what our gifts are, who know the best ways that we can help serve others. But there are others of us that are still kind of struggling to find what that is, what our special gifts are. But even if you think about it, in this story, Solomon doesn't get his greatest gift, his wisdom, until he becomes king. He's not born with it, he gets it later in life. So, whether you have gifts that you want to continue to use to honor God, or if you're still searching for your special way that you can help others, the important thing to remember is that we do all have gifts, and that we can always continue to ask God for help. because God is always there for us and always willing to help.